Devin, the floor is yours.
Oh, great. Okay, I know you do your intro sometimes. Um, Wonderful. Well, give me 1 second. Hopefully folks can see my screen all right, the PowerPoint slides here. Um, well, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Wednesday, and welcome to the last webinar of our weekly BEAD webinar series for now. And this is because we are 1 day away from a huge program milestone, which is the official launch of the BEAD program here in Illinois. So, really excited and so great to see everyone on this call and your participation, questions, and engagements over the last several months. About to embark on this new phase of the journey. So, really excited to be here with this group together. And so, with that, I will dive into today's webinar. Quick recap on why we're here. The goal of these webinars is to help folks understand what Connect Illinois Round 4 and the BEAD program is all about, specifically focusing on components of the application that might differ from previous rounds of Connect Illinois, walking through templates, forms, documents to help folks get up to speed ahead of the formal application process. And so today, in addition to our standard recap, we will be going over some remaining templates that we did not get to last week, and also looking at the new project area selection tool and doing a demo of how to use that tool, and then specifically how to use that tool to download locations that you'd like to include in your application and upload those locations to the template that you'll use to actually submit as a part of your application. So I will be sharing the floor with my colleague Shubika Agarwal today. So first, quick recap of BEAD. BEAD is a $42 billion federal grant program, and the goal of which is to bring high-speed, quality, affordable broadband to all states and territories across the country. And here in Illinois, we've been allocated $1.04 billion to achieve this goal. So really over the next 5 years, we will be seeking to make sure that every household has a quality, affordable broadband connection by running a subgrantee selection process to dole out these funds to internet service providers, entities who can deploy broadband service, and then implement those funds and implement those projects over the next 4 years. So, main update for today is that most recently our project area selection tool was published on Monday. So, this is now available, and this will be the focus for a bulk of our time today. To recap on our most recent updates, our pre-qualification participation notice letters are out. This is really important to find if you did participate in pre-qualification and are planning to apply for BEAD. So definitely reach out to me if you're not sure what I'm talking about or you can't seem to find that, so we can make sure to regenerate that for you. Of course, we have our BEAD eligibility data posted along with our project area units, our NOFO, and our application guidebook. So looking ahead, should move this diamond really close to the blue box because tomorrow is the big day. We are launching the application for wave one of the BEAD subgrantee selection process. So wave one will be 5 weeks, opening on January 23rd, closing on February 26th. To participate in wave one, we will evaluate applications that meet two criteria. One, they are end-to-end fiber projects, so just fiber for this first round. And then two, they have at least 10% of PAUs that are considered hard to serve. So we'll go through this 5 week application process. We'll have office hours twice a week and be available to support you during the process if you need help filling out any forms, navigating the map, clarifying the rules. We've got lots of time for that. After we go through our evaluation and scoring and we publish our updated project area units, so those that are still available, we will launch wave two, likely in late April. And wave two is open to all reliable broadband technology applications. So really excited to see not just fiber there, but also licensed fixed wireless, hybrid, any sort of approaches that can help us meet our goal. And then finally, Wave 3 is optional based on what we cover through waves 1 and 2. But if we do run a wave 3, we will open up that application process one more time and make that available for all reliable broadband technologies, potentially do some one-on-one negotiations to make sure that all PAUs have been claimed, and also potentially consider alternative technologies, again, based on where we're at with our budget and making sure that all of those eligible PAUs are claimed through subgrantees. So I know I focused on this last time, but I do want to do a quick recap in case anyone was not here. So this is relevant for any entities who participated in the pre-qualification process. If you are planning to apply for BEAD, which we hope that you are, I encourage you to look in your email inbox and find this pre-qualification letter. It will have come from someone on our team named Tiffany Mills. So this will be a PDF attached to an email. And there's a couple of important characteristics here that you'll want to pull into your application. So you'll see there is a summary of approved qualifications right here on the left, and then your pre-qualification participant ID or PQP ID, PPQ ID. You'll want to have those handy for your application. So what you see on the right here is a part of the entity submission form, and you'll have an opportunity to answer yes to this first question. Did you participate in the BEAD funded Connect Illinois Round 4 pre-qualification process? So if you did, click yes. And then there are two things that you'll have to do. First, you'll want to enter that PPQ ID from your letter. So look back at your PDF, look down at the bottom, and you'll see this PPQ ID. You'll type it into here. That will link your application with your already approved submission. And then because things may have changed, you may have updated your documentation, we'll ask that you tell us which of your qualifications that were previously approved you want us to consider as a part of your application this time around. So you'll just check off each of those qualifications. It'll be a letter and a number. And then on the back end, we will make sure that the qualifications that you check off do align with what was approved on your letter. So on the left-hand side here, you can see that A1 and A2 under financial capabilities were approved. And so this example checks off A1 and A2, so that looks correct to me. So another recap here, we have just over 175,000 locations statewide that are eligible to be connected through the BEAD program. This includes 172,000 unserved and underserved locations that we are required to connect, and then an additional 3,356 community anchor institutions, which we will default to having you all include in your applications. That if we do get to a point where we need to reduce our costs, we may be in the scenario where we ask you to kind of shave those off and descope your applications accordingly. All right. Moving on to section 2, we're going to focus on some final templates here and then do a demo of our project area selection tool. So another recap, BEAD requires us to verify that awardees meet a certain set of qualifications. So we are checking on all of these boxes that you see here. Your technical capabilities, your ownership capabilities, operational, your experience with other publicly funded projects. $1 billion is a lot of public dollars, and so we want to confirm that it will be used in an effective way to achieve our goals of universal connectivity. So the qualifications that have an orange box around them include a template. And the template is just a way for us to collect information about your entity or about your project in a uniform way. So last time we talked about the ownership template, existing broadband projects, project timeline, project cost and capital investment schedule, and the pro forma. And today we're going to focus on the project area sheet template, the PE certification template, and the model letter of credit. And as a reminder, we have kind of 3 different terms here. So when we say template, we're referring to a document that requires applicants to input project-specific information in a format that we will give you. Forms are just a standard, you'll need to input some information and maybe sign it. For example, a W-9 we consider a form. And then example documents you're not actually filling in, but they are available as a reference to show kind of what we are expecting and to make the process a little bit easier. All right. So first we have a sample letter of credit here, a model letter of credit. We do not require this as a part of the application process. We will only require a commitment letter, but we do provide this example so you know what you'll need to provide should you be awarded prior to executing our subgrantee agreement. And I'm going to hand it over to my colleague John to share a little bit more about the expectations around the letter of credit, the letter of credit waiver, and the commitment letter.
Okay, thank you, Devin. Good to see everyone. Hope you're all excited and have many applications ready for us starting tomorrow. Letter of credit. Okay, so first, Devin just spoke to the core point. Hopefully by now everyone is well acquainted with the letter of credit or performance bond requirement for BEAD subgrantees. That is a federal requirement. It applies to all states. So first, maybe we'll just kind of work backwards, as Devin just said. If at the end of the process, after our wave 2 or wave 3, and you've actually been selected for a specific subgrant for a specific set of locations, we will then require this letter of credit that would meet the formal requirements of the program, as Devin said, and there's some pretty well-established examples of that, and there really are specific federal requirements that have to be followed. That only is at the end of the process. We're not requiring you to do that now for the application. Okay. So what is required with your application, though, is essentially two sides of the same coin. There is a certification you have to make as part of the application process. You basically are certifying as the applicant, yes, we understand and acknowledge this requirement exists for us to be awarded a subgrant. And just then to give the state a little bit more confidence that in fact any given applicant is prepared to meet this requirement, we also are going to request a commitment letter with the application. Now, we do not have a specific template or format for that. Now, there are quite a few versions of that out there in the industry at this point. We're not requiring any specific template. But in a sense, what we're looking for is clear enough language from a financial intermediary, a bank or a bond issuer, essentially saying in relatively clear language, yes, we financial provider X are prepared to issue a letter of credit or a performance bond meeting the requirements of the BEAD program to entity Y for the purposes of the Illinois program. And we're just going to review that for its plain language, basically to confirm that, in fact, you essentially have already put in motion those discussions with the appropriate financial provider. Just to anticipate one question, I think we understand very clearly that there is a bit of a chicken and egg issue, which is you obviously will not know when you apply what your total award amount will be. You'll know what you're going to apply for, but you don't know what you're going to win. Therefore, obviously, there needs to be a little bit of a flexibility or ranging perhaps in a dollar amount. And again, we do understand that chicken and egg. Fundamentally, what we're really saying here is we want a commitment letter that indicates above and beyond your basic acknowledgement of the requirement, you have actually had real conversations with a financial intermediary or many intermediaries who can meet this requirement. You're ready to go. And that way we can proceed confidently knowing that if you are selected, you're going to be able to meet the requirement.
Wonderful. Thank you, John. All right, so we will have a kind of full model letter of credit available for download for you to peruse. And second, we have a professional engineer certification template. So the BEAD program requires PE certification on a few deliverables that we'll ask from applicants. That's the project timeline, the technical narrative, the network design, the logical network diagram, and the project costs template with the exception of the capital investment schedule. So this is relatively straightforward, and I'll show you where it exists on our website right now in a moment. But is a standard letter that you would essentially bring to your professional engineer and have them stamp, include their certification, their ID, and sign it, basically saying that they have indeed reviewed all of these materials that you are putting forth, and based on their expertise, the network and the proposal should operate as you make it out to be for the costs that you include in your proposal. John, anything you would add to this piece?
Yeah, in some ways, it's pretty similar to the letter of credit. So a PE stamp actually is a federal requirement at the end of the process for an actual award. And so Illinois on this issue is essentially saying, given Illinois' experience, frankly, with earlier Connect Illinois rounds, and given what we're already asking for from the technical showing, going ahead and asking for the PE stamp now just felt like the right balance because, again, it's necessary. We are going to be doing some review of what you put in here, and therefore it made sense to go ahead and have that PE step as well. But in terms of the format and the template approach, this should be pretty straightforward. All of you as applicants work with professional engineers. You know how this works. Essentially, we're just saying you need it at the end, and in Illinois, we're going to ask you to go ahead and do it now because we know we're going to need it, and we feel like we've got a process in place that'll actually take it into account.
Yeah. All right. So first, this is just a preview of our project area selection sheet, and then I'm going to show you the actual tool that I've been alluding to. But to summarize, there will be a way for you to download the PAUs that you are proposing to include in your project, and then we'll ask that you essentially copy and paste the list into this template, and it helps us kind of see some of those key statistics of what percent of hard to serve do you have, how many locations, what's the reference cost, things like that. So more to come on this in a few minutes, but wanted to flash this up so you kind of know where we're going. So I'm going to share a couple of slides that highlight key features of our new project area selection tool, which will kind of be the new go-to tool that you can use to pull together your applications to answer the question, is this community eligible? Is this address eligible, etc. And then I'll flip to my browser to show you where it lives on our website and what it looks like from a dynamic perspective. And then I'll hand it over to Shubika to actually show you how you can download that CSV and plop it into the template and kind of what to look for there. So this is the tool. You can see the website up there. And overall, the goal of this tool is to allow prospective applicants to view project area units and eligible locations, add them to a shopping cart, download them, potentially re-upload them, edit their selections, and so on and so forth as you prepare your application. So the next couple of slides, I will walk through the main kind of highlighted features here. If this looks familiar, it is because we used a similar template as we did for the challenge process map. So it is a bit different, but maybe will be a little bit familiar to many of you. So there are a couple of tabs up here on the left-hand side, and the main tab is called layers. You can check on and off each layer, which essentially means if there's a checkbox there, you can see that layer on the map. And if you remove the checkbox, you are hiding it from the map. So to talk through some of these terms, PAU aggregate areas are essentially just the area around a project area unit that kind of helps visually distinguish PAUs from each other. You'll see that there's some kind of sub-coloring here. The most important is that red outline, which shows hard to serve PAUs. Next, we have eligible locations. So these are just points on the map that belong to PAUs, and they're eligible to be connected through the BEAD program. Broadband serviceable locations, or BSLs, are marked as dots, and community anchor institutions are marked as triangles. Ineligible locations are locations that are not eligible for the BEAD program, perhaps because they're classified as served. We have provided this as a layer because BEAD does allow up to 20% of an application to include these ineligible locations. So if you're curious to kind of see, is my network design going to be passing, a street or a block that does have ineligible locations, I might want to include them in my funding request. So this is a kind of visual tool to enable that. But know that when you download locations, it will only include eligible locations. So you'll have to kind of pull those in from elsewhere. And then finally, we have a layer that shows high cost areas. So these are NTIA defined census block groups considered an above average cost to serve. And this is significant for our program because project areas that have PAUs in high cost areas are exempt from that minimum 25% matching funds. So I'll walk through some of the functionality now. On that same first tab called Layers, you'll see a standard search bar. And similar to our other map, you can search for a county, a town, an address, a zip code, most sort of locations. And then the map will zoom in and you'll see the PAUs and the locations in that location. So each point that you see here is considered a BEAD eligible location. And if you're curious about the significance of the colors, locations in the same project area unit or PAU share a color, and PAUs with a red outline are those that are deemed hard to serve. Next, we'll go to the right. So there's a second tab called PAUs. Essentially, as you kind of browse the map, zoom in, move around, the PAUs on the left-hand panel are what pop up as you are moving around the map. So this doesn't mean that you've selected them. It just provides you, at a glance, some information and statistics about that PAU. So the big important functionality here is how can you actually view details about a PAU and then add it to your shopping cart. So you can click on a location or sort of this area around the locations to see information about that PAU. So what you can see on the screen here is the PAU ID, the count of underserved and unserved, count of community and institutions, total locations, and then the reference cost for that PAU. And then if you want to add it to your project, to your shopping cart, you click on Add to My PAUs here. There are also across the map this concept called shared hexagons. You may or may not come across these, but to just clarify proactively, what a shared hexagon is essentially when there is a group of PAUs that may fall in the same hexagon. So as I've shared before, a project area unit is just a grouping of eligible locations that share PAU ID. And in some cases, they might kind of share a shape here. And this only comes into play if you're clicking on that area of the shape. We want to make sure that you have the precision to tell us which PAU you actually want to add to your shopping cart. So in this instance, you can see that the two PAUs are kind of in this area up here with the dark orange dots. And then this PAU here with the light orange, they just both happen to fall into the same hexagon. And so if you click on this hexagon right here, you have the chance to toggle between the two and then indicate which one you want to add to your PAUs. And there's a way to go back and remove one if you do add the wrong one. Another function is the bulk PAU selection. So if you click on this finger, this pointer finger on the right side, it allows you to do two things. One, you can lasso a group of PAUs, so kind of use that tool to draw a big lasso and grab them in bulk. It'll also function as a control key, so you can click on multiple PAUs and then in bulk click Add to My PAUs to add them to your shopping cart. And if there are any of those shared hexagons that you kind of select as a part of that bulk selection, this box on the right-hand side will pop up and you'll have the opportunity to hold down that control key and select only the ones that you intended to select. So if you hold down the control key and click on it, it'll uncheck. And if you want to check it again, you can just click it again. Then we have the third tab on this sort of right-hand panel called My PAUs. This essentially aggregates all of the PAUs that you have added to your shopping cart. So every time you said add to my PAUs, this is where they will live. We have these helpful summary statistics at the top to help you keep track of how you're progressing towards some of these important metrics. So in wave one, it'll show you the breakdown of regular PAUs versus hard to serve PAUs and the percentage. So as a reminder, you'll need at least 10% hard to serve PAUs in this first wave. So this is a little cheat sheet, if you will. The second sort of button here is locations. If you're curious to see how many CAIs, how many unserved, underserved, that is where this breakdown will be. Although I will say for our application process, unserved and underserved are both priority, and we expect that you'll serve all of those locations. So more just as a FYI if you are curious. And then finally, the reference cost. This provides a total, so a sum of all of the reference costs for each PAU. As a reminder, in your application, we do not need to see the breakdown of your budget for each PAU. We are only looking for how much funding you're requesting for your entire project, and we will score you against what you request, how that compares to the total reference cost for your entire project area. So it'll just take a sum, and that's what you can see here. Another function of the My PAUs panel is that you can indicate whether a PAU is a must-have or a must-include. And you can do that by clicking on this star. So it'll your mind, click it again, and it'll be removed. And as a reminder, the significance of this is that if you indicate that a PAU is a must include, you're telling us that this project might not work if someone else claims that PAU first. And so what this means on our end is that if another project scores higher than yours and has overlapping PAUs, and one of those overlapping PAUs that another higher scoring project has claimed, if you had indicated that PAU as a must include for your project, we will not automatically descope it and make that preliminary award. Instead, we'll likely come back to you and say, this must include PAU was taken by another project. Do you want to resubmit, revise your application, or withdraw it? And finally, there's a series of tools here. Again, I believe these are the same as they were during the challenge process. So first, the floppy disk here allows you to download and save your PAUs as a CSV. This will come in handy for your application. So let's put a pin in this one. And then this is also helpful because this is not a tool where you can log in and save your work. So if you are building your portfolio and you want to come back and continue another time, we recommend downloading the PAUs as a CSV. And then if you go back and the work is not there, you could just upload that saved CSV to continue where you left off. This quadrant here allows you to view PAUs at the location level. So it shows you a table with every location as a line and then the associated PAU to which it belongs. And then this last button allows you to delete all PAUs from your shopping cart, and it'll give you a little, are you sure you want to delete these? And so you'll always get a second chance if you clicked it by accident. And so with that, I'm going to switch to my web browser and show you what the tool looks like. Let's find my browser here. Okay. So hopefully folks can see this is the Office of Broadband website. I'm starting here because I'm going to use this as an opportunity to make sure that you know where to find a lot of the key information. So this is our homepage. And you'll see we have this quick link right up top that says find information about the BEAD subgrantee selection process. This is where everything related to the BEAD process will be housed. So we've revamped this a couple days ago to kind of summarize everything that you'll need. We have the notice of funding opportunity, the application guidebook, the actual application forms, which will be open tomorrow, and then the project area selection tool, which I'll click on in a moment, plus some great additional resources. So our Illinois broadband map, we have a new one pager, Q&A. We've been documenting all of your questions during this webinar and publishing responses online. So folks sort of all have the same information, local coordination guidance, the serviceability updates guidance, BEAD eligibility by county. This is something that folks have been asking for, so this is now online. And then our previous webinar slides and recordings, these are available to get some history of what we have talked about. And the last thing I'll show you right now is the BEAD application guidebook. So this should be sort of your one-stop shop for all things BEAD, all helpful links. And I'm going to show you where you can find all of these templates and links. So if you scroll to page 3 and you click on Appendix 5, this is your cheat sheet of all of the forms, all of the templates. So once you click these links, everything will download. Okay, so now I will show you our project area selection tool. When you first reach the tool, this pop-up will display that just kind of shows the basics of how to use it and what Wave 1 entails. You can just X out of that. And then you'll see here those 3 layers that I talked about, and then this search bar. So I'm gonna, for time's sake here, just go to Marion County. So you can see lots of hard to serve PAUs in this area. They're notated by this red dotted outline. You'll see locations here. So if you hover over a location, you can see the specific address. And then if you click on either location or the kind of area surrounding it, you can see the PAU that it belongs to. So this is all kind of the light orange. And then on the right-hand side here, you can see information about that PAU. And then if you want to add it to your shopping cart, you can click Add to My PAUs. I'll also show you this kind of lasso tool here. We want to go down here. So I just added a handful to my PAUs. Maybe I'll use the actual lasso here. So once they're in your cart, they turn green, so you can see. And there's always a way to deselect them by going to My PAUs and then scrolling down, viewing your selection so far. And you can always click Remove from My PAUs. To indicate that a PAU is must include, you can click on this star. And then if you change your mind, you can unclick that star. And here you could see the summary statistics. So first button here is PAUs. We have 50% hard to serve PAUs, so this would be eligible for funding in Wave 1. We can also check out our total number of locations and then the reference cost. So when I'm submitting my budget, I know that I will be scored based on the difference between this reference cost and my budget. If my budget comes under, there's an opportunity to earn more points. If my budget comes over, there will be fewer points on the table. This is the save button to save that as a CSV. Here's where you can upload a previously saved CSV. You can view all your locations in a table format if you're looking to see the specific location ID and information about its PAU at the location level. And then you can delete everything if you'd like to delete everything. And our PAUs tab here just kind of shows what PAUs are on the screen right now. And that's another way to add them in. If you wanted to toggle on and off layers, so let's say the polygons or the kind of shapes surrounding the dots are just more confusing than helpful, you can get rid of them and just know that the colors mean that they are located in the same project area unit. If you just want to see the polygons, you can turn off eligible locations. You can turn on high cost areas that you might want to look up where these are in advance so you know kind of where to direct yourself. And then you can turn on ineligible locations with the sort of note that there are a lot of them, and so it might take a minute to render, but they're all here, so you can see where there might be served locations intermixed with the unserved and underserved. And with that, I think I will pause here and hand it over to Shavika to share how you actually download the PAUs and then use our selection template, and then we will take questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Devin. I'm going to start sharing my screen and firstly start with the template, the project area selection template. So here we go. Are we seeing the template?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Let's zoom in a little bit. We look at the different tabs here and how this kind of works with the PAU selection tool that Devin had demonstrated. So all of these templates, they have a good set of instructions with them. So you don't necessarily have to revisit the webinar or anything. And as Devin mentioned, we will have office hours and you can just reach out to us if you have any questions. We'll start with like walking through the different tabs on here. Firstly, the instructions tab. So this gives you a sense for why you're filling this out and what is required in each of the different tabs that we see on here. So a few that we have starting off with the applicant information. There's detailed information with respect to the cells that you're supposed to be filling out and what kind of input necessarily is needed for those. Then we have the raw data input. This is where we'll actually work with the PAU selection tool. Um, then there's PAUs tab, which pulls in the data from the raw data input. And there is some information that the applicant will have to fill in here for some of these with respect to the technology that they want to deploy to each of these PAUs that they have selected. We'll look at some of the examples here as we are working through the example later on. There's the additional locations tab. So again, as Devin had mentioned previously, you can include up to 20% of ineligible locations as part of your application. One keynote here would be those would have to be within hexagons that are part of PAUs already. So it cannot be outside of that because as you'll see, each of these inputs here is on a location basis and they would all require a PAU ID and a hexagon number in addition to the technology that you'll be deploying to those. So just one keynote there, yes, up to 20% of ineligible locations, but they would still have to be in those polygons that you kind of see on the map. And then we have the submission summary, which would also seen in one of the slides that Devin shared. So as we fill this out, we'll also see how this populates. And this wouldn't need any additional input from you as the applicant, but you'll be able to see a summary of all of the project area units you've selected and plan for the next steps in submission of your application. So starting out with the applicant information, this is going to be part of all of your templates. Again, just to make sure that we're able to link all of your materials to the right application, we would want this to match the entity submission form that you've submitted and pretty standard information here with legal entity name, TBA, EIN, and the contact information for your organization who's submitting this. So the raw data input, this is where I am going to go into the PAU selection tool. And right here on the top as well, there's a link to the map that's going to take you to the PAU selection tool if you're not able to find it elsewhere. So switching to that. Or you could just, as Devin mentioned, access the map through the subgrantee selection process landing page, and this is where you'll get to. Just wondering if we have an area of interest from the attendees. If there's one, we can look at that specifically. Just put it in the chat, or I can look up any specific area in the state myself. Just give it a couple of seconds to see if we have a response. Okay, in the interest of time, maybe we'll just look at an example for Manhattan in Illinois, which is, okay, I see we're Million County, so let's do that. Million County, Illinois. We typed it into the search bar, zooms in there. Devin walked us through a lot of how the tool works. I'm not gonna take a lot of time there, but as we dig into the specific county, what you can now do is make a selection. Just go to my PAUs, maybe click on specific ones that zoom to it, or still work on the zoomed out version if you already have a sense of like, these are the different PAUs that I wanna be covering. So I am now gonna use the lasso tool to select a few of these. And we have quite a few here with the shared hexagons. So if you want to include all of them in your application, you don't have to do anything. These are all checked already. But if you probably only want to include a few of these, you can click on these individually, and that's going to adjust what your selection looks like. So if I just want to include this shared hexagon, it is with this PAU ID, then this is what my selection looks like. I can press the control key and then select multiple, and that's going to change what my selection looks like. So I'm going to do that a couple of times. And just show you how the map's really changing in some of these places. So a few hexes lighting up. I think for this, I'll just select all for now. Add to my PAUs. So all of those turning green goes in here. Looking at the summary statistics now, again, for wave one, you'd want to make sure that the hard to serve is greater than 10%. So we see here with this selection, it's at 44, which is pretty good. We get a sense of the total number of locations and the reference cost for all of the PAUs selected. So once you're comfortable with this, we can go to the CSV export. As Devin had mentioned, you can still remove any of these if you'd like to and see how that changes things up. So currently my reference cost is at 5.19 million. Maybe if I want to remove this, how's that changing things for me? How the number of locations changing? And what's the PAUs again? So you can continue to like do this as long as you reach a point where you are confident in the selection that you have made for your application. Considering that I'm at that point right now where I'm like, yes, all of the green ones, I want to be serving those. I'm gonna select save PAUs as a CSV. Then wherever you want to be saving it, just hit save. So that saves that to your computer. If you want to bring it on later on, you can use this version and navigate to the file again and do that. I'm not going to do it for this demonstration, but that's an option. If you've previously selected a group of PAUs, you can bring that on using the Open PAUs from CSV button right here. So we're still making a few tweaks to the template. So for the purposes of this demonstration, I've already saved another version of this, which is going to align with the PAU project area selection template. This is what it's going to look like. You can also see that in another view. I want to just make sure you see that. There is a grid view here, which helps you see your selection even before you download it. So that might also be helpful. Um, yeah, going back to this, this is in a format that's going to align with the project area selection tool. So all you're supposed to do at this point is, assuming this is the final list of PAUs and locations that you want to serve, um, you are going to select all of this, Control Shift and down, so that it selects all of your records here, copy it and paste it as is into the template here. So Control V, and all of those inputs go in here into the raw data input. Again, there are instructions on, you would click on B8, so the first cell of this table, and then hit paste so that it's the right format that we need it in. And this is the only thing that you're supposed to do with this tab. Now moving on to PAUs, what this has done is taken in a lot of the input from the previous tab. So we also have instructions here. So all of the ones that are grayed out do not need any input from the user. And this specific tab will only be filling out columns H, I, and J. And there are some specific rules to this as well. So in terms of the technology that's going to be deployed, these are the different options: fiber optic, coax, licensed terrestrial fixed wireless, licensed by rule, unlicensed fixed wireless, there's copper, LEO, this would be the alternate technology, other non-reliable technology, mix of reliable technology, and mix of reliable and non-reliable technology. So because this template is going to be used across waves, that's why we have all of these technology options in there for wave one. Because it's more fiber focused, you'd probably would just want to select fiber for a wave one application that you might be submitting. So we'll do that in a bit. Now, just to demonstrate instances where you might be filling out columns I and J. So this is column I is only needed if you're selecting other non-reliable technology or mix of reliable technology or mix of reliable and non-reliable. So depending on what you select and the input that's needed, it's going to highlight those in yellow. So it's not like you're going to forget which ones need input. Just based on your selection, it's going to tell you the different cells that you still have to fill out. If I were to select fiber, I don't have to fill out I and J columns. So yeah, your proposal can basically have a mix of technology, and depending on your selection, there might be these additional cells that you will have to fill. And for this example here, just selecting fiber for all of these. Okay, seems like I'm not able to drag. Oh, you can drag. All these being fiber, that looks good.
And just to jump in for a moment to point something out. So what's happening on this tab is you're telling us for each PAU, so every row is a PAU, we need to know what technology you're proposing to use. And that could either be one technology, which is what we'd expect in wave one, but in wave two, we might expect more than one technology if you're, using fiber for some, fixed wireless for another. So that is an opportunity to input into column I. And then we just need to know the number of BSLs that are being connected to fiber if you do submit something in column I, and that would go in column J.
Yeah. And again, just a few tweaks here. So the format might be slightly different, but once you have this input, it's going to say valid submission on here. And you can ideally move on to the next tab, the additional locations. This might be optional. So again, if you are interested in including those 20% or so locations, that is when you would do this. And in the final sheet, this is where you will have your summary that would be of interest to you. So how it's broken down. So the project type, because again, hard to serve plays a key role in wave one. You see with this particular selection, 24% of our PAUs are in the hard to serve category. So we have met the threshold there. The total number of PAUs selected. So for the CSP that I used, it was a total of 25, of which 6 were hard to serve. And then we have the reference cost for all of this. Again, this is going to be important because depending on the match versus the grant request, that's going to impact your scoring. And the total number of BSLs selected, so the number of unserved and underserved BSLs in your selection, because I have not included any additional served locations on here. The submission says number of not unserved or underserved or eligible CI selected, that's still 0. Because we've selected fiber for all of our deployment, percentage of priority BSLs, again, is 661. So that's all of the BSLs that we've selected at 100%. And our selection also includes for CAIs. So this is when your template is now ready for submission. So you're going to save it, and the guidebook has additional instructions for where this goes into the application form, and then there are additional text fields that you might have to fill out in order to move to the next step of your submission. But that's pretty much about the project area selection template. And again, one note, still making a few tweaks to this. So would recommend that you visit the guidebook again tomorrow and download the latest version that can be used for application submission. And we will continue to have office hours where you can just reach out to us with any specific questions that you might have as you are starting to use this template. And I'm going to stop sharing and pass it back to Devin. Devin, you're on mute.
Oh, so sorry. I thank Shabika for her presentation and shared a reminder that at the back of all of our presentations are a series of helpful links. So we have our website, the NOFO, etc. The new one here is now our office hours. So starting this Thursday, we will have office hours every Tuesday and Thursday from 1 to 2 p.m. Central Time on Zoom. This is a place to ask questions, to get one-on-one support on filling out a template, navigating rules. We can answer them as a big group. We can take you sort of in a breakout room. And we're also happy to set up time outside of the office hours to address any of your questions. So with that, I will take a look at some of these questions in the chat. Okay. So I got a direct message. If two different applicants are endorsed for the same area by the same government office, how does it affect their chances of getting BEAD funding, assuming both companies are otherwise reputable? Should the endorsing body only pick one? So I suggest looking at the local coordination guide as well as the scoring rubric. And you can see that we'll score based on the breadth and depth of evidence of local coordination that's submitted. So if these two applications are completely equal in their BEAD outlay, in their history of past compliance, and then they both get a really solid endorsement from a local government, it is possible that they could come out really similarly. Although there is still an opportunity for one applicant to kind of submit and compile more comprehensive community support information. So I think if you as a county government feel more strongly about one applicant over the other, you may consider only providing your support to one. But because there is so many opportunities for earning points and community support outside of just that county's endorsement, I think there are still opportunities for those providers to stand out from each other and be competitive. So it's kind of your call. All right, next question here. Does the professional engineer have to be licensed in Illinois? I do not believe so. If anyone on the call wants to correct me, feel free to jump in, but
Yeah.
I do not believe so.
So federally that is not required, and if it's not, and so it's almost like, Devin, you're Illinois and you're saying it's not, so I think it's not. It's a PE, but not one just in Illinois.
Yeah, it is not in our NOFA. So
Yeah.
Up to 20% of locations in our application can be ineligible. Did I hear that correctly? That is correct. So you can include, out of your full set of locations, 20% of those can be ineligible, meaning already served. The tip or guidance that we're offering along with that is you still want to keep in mind how to submit a competitive application. So we'll ask for an explanation of why you're including those in their application. For example, are you already passing all of these served locations? So it just makes sense, or it would be more expensive if you did not include them in your application. We just encourage you to consider your overall BEAD ask to make sure that pulling in those additional served locations doesn't increase it to the point where it doesn't score well in the application process. Additionally, any location that you are including in a BEAD application will be subject to BEAD requirements, so reporting, performance, etc. Is there a way to do a bulk upload for a selection of PAUs? There is not, unless you select them, download them. You can re-upload them at another time. But if you do have PAUs in mind, you will need to go into the tool and select them, and then you can download them as a CSV. I received a direct message about a consortium versus individual company bids. Would we be able to participate as a consortium for some PAUs and as an individual company for other PAUs? So this is on page 11 of our NOFO. Our main restriction is that you cannot apply for the same PAU as both an individual entity and as a part of a consortium, but you can apply to serve PAUs separately, one as a consortium, one as an individual, keeping in mind the anti-collusion rules that are also in our PAU. So you should not be discussing with other applicants and kind of sharing what your application approach is, because that can be considered collusion. Does all of the data behind the project area selection tool align to the downloadable eligible location data on the Illinois broadband map? Yes, it should. If you see anything that looks off, just let us know, but that is the same data, just two different tools for kind of two different purposes. Will we be releasing final guidance on the set milestones for the fixed amount subaward payments? We have finalized these on the back end thanks to many folks' feedback earlier this fall. So I think we can release those, and that will also be in the final grant agreement. So feel free to shoot me an email, but I'll kind of add that to our list as something to share. Is it correct that CAIs are included in the eligible locations layer, but are not identified in that layer as CAIs? They are identified as CAIs by their shape, so they're triangles instead of circles. And if you hover over them, you should be able to see the name of the CAI versus just the address of a household. Where is the link to register for office hours? So there's no registration. It's just a recurring Zoom link that you can join. And I will be sure to share that out in the email. It's also on our website on the subgrantee selection page. So just put in your calendar Tuesday, Thursday, 1 to 2 p.m., and it's the same link every time. Okay, I think we made it through all of our questions. So to wrap up, here is what to expect. But by tomorrow morning, our forms that now say kind of we open on January 23rd will officially be open. I would take a look back at the application guidebook and kind of download all the templates fresh to make sure you have the latest. And you are welcome to start building your applications. And we'll have office hours at 1 p.m. tomorrow, where we'll also be kind of treating that as a mini TA session to walk through the NOFO and share some reminders um, about the GATA process and pre-qualification. So we're excited to see your proposals. And as always, please email broadband@illinois.gov anytime, and we will meet with you, answer your questions. We are happy to help. Thanks, everyone. Excited to see what you have, what you'll put forth. And of course, we're always open to feedback and your ideas.
Thank you, Devin.
Close out.
Thank you. Thank you, Devin. Thank you, Shabika. Thanks to the Illinois Office of Broadband for all the great work you're doing. The materials will be distributed to the registered participants in today's program. And also, don't forget about the resources that are available on the YouTube channel. I believe they're located on the Illinois Office of Broadband website as well as the University of Illinois Extension Community and Economic Development YouTube channel. So, resources for your reference. Thanks, everybody, for attending.
And I'm just going to throw in the chat the Zoom link. So every Tuesday, Thursday, 1 p.m., this is the Zoom link. And if you are on our subgrantee selection webpage, it is at the very top. So right before the table, but I'll put that link in here as well. And thanks a lot, everyone.
Have a great day. Stay warm.